Oh, wait. Okay. How about now?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. All right. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dwight Sablan. The topic of my talk will be graduate school and how you can prepare during undergrad, along with just some things to know during the application process. And I want to preface this by saying that I'm going to be talking from the perspective of a master's student. So if you plan on applying to graduate programs or PhD programs, there are some parts of the process that are a little bit different, like the interview process or finding a research mentor. But for the most part, there's you can take some things away from this as they're very similar. Okay, so who am I? So like Abigail said, I just finished my undergrad last semester, majored in mathematics, did a minor in computer science. I was also part of EMC squared, served as the historian for one semester. And the summer of last year, I also was a student researcher at IUPUI. And now currently post undergrad, I work at RCOG as a research associate under the Cancer Research Grant. I'm also an adjunct constructor, and I'm also doing my master's at University of Washington. All right. So first I want to talk to you about how you can prepare for grad school, specifically during your undergrad. So what you want to do in undergrad, these are just some tips that I wanted to hear when preparing for grad school that I would have liked to know in my undergrad. So some of the things is to find what you're interested in, of course, getting good grades and taking relevant courses, find learning experiences outside of the classroom, and get to know your professors and mentors and allow them to get to know you. Okay, so you probably already took the first step in finding what you're interested in by declaring your major. And now that you've done that, I think it's important that you explore a little bit further into what you're passionate about or what you enjoy doing, as this will be helpful in informing your decisions on what type of graduate programs to apply to. So below the first bullet point, I listed some different types of graduate programs for math. So for within mathematics, you have pure math and applied math, and you have all these sub-disciplines: calculus, analysis, statistics, differential equations. So in your undergrad, you're taking all these different courses and you're learning all this new material and learning particular concepts and ideas within your major. And I encourage you to tend to your interests and look into it further, and just so that you can find your niche or find what you want to learn more about in graduate school. So for me, the way that my journey went was I initially declared as a math and computer science major, but soon after I realized that I wasn't that interested in computer science and the theory of it. I just enjoyed coding, but I was enjoying my math classes. But then again, I wasn't taking any particular interest in any class until one time in my computer science class, Dr. Zhao actually introduced us to this idea of big data. And he introduced this through a research paper. So I wanted to look into this idea further. So I bought this book, Big Data. And in that, I learned about how data science is changing our world and what kinds of questions you can answer with data science tools and techniques. So from then on, I took classes and found experiences that would build on my knowledge of data science. So I took statistics classes, I took a research class, and I also attended a data science RU. So Another tip that I'm sure you don't need to hear from me is to get good grades if you want to get into grad school and take the relevant courses. So most programs require that you meet a certain overall GPA, usually like a 3.0. And additionally, some schools might require that you get a certain grade for particular courses. So some programs require that you take certain prerequisites. So for example, in the data science programs, they require that you do 3 semesters of calculus, you have a linear algebra class, and then you also took 2 programming courses. So it's important that you research what the prereqs for the programs that you want to apply to during your undergrad so that you know that what classes to take, and that won't hinder you from applying to those programs in the future. So the next thing you want to do in preparation for grad school is just to find learning experiences outside of the classroom. It could be in the form of work experience via internships. I know there's a CS internship class at UOG. You can be a TA at UOG or a research assistant, or you can get learning experiences through research. So you can get this through RUs, which are research experience for undergraduates. That happen over the summer where you work on a particular research topic. Or you can also take research courses like MA 431 PIC Math. So this is important because not only does it build your resume, but it also gives you the opportunity to apply what you're learning in class. And it also prompts you to learn new skills and new topics outside of the UOG curriculum, right? This is something that I really prioritized in my last 2 years of undergrad. So once I decided that data science was what I wanted to get into, I decided to start taking or finding experiences outside of the classroom, right? So one of my most valuable experiences in my undergrad was my research experience last year in Indiana, where I had the opportunity to learn new skills and topics like exploratory data analysis, coding in Python, writing a research paper. But it also gave me the opportunity to get a paper published at a conference, which I think definitely strengthened my resume, which at the time wasn't really extensive. And another thing you can do is just ask around, ask your professors if they need any help with anything, or if they're working on any projects, or if they know of any opportunity you'd be a good fit for. I remember last year I bothered Dr. Kino and Dr. Badowski for work or if they need help with anything. And I was able to gain some valuable experience through them. So that's another good thing you should probably do. So in the same vein of bothering your professors, I think it's also important to get to know your professors and let them get to know you. This is important because these are the people that are going to be writing your letters of recommendation for grad school. So you don't want them to write a generic letter that's very surface level that they could have written about any student, because this hinders the admissions committee from actually getting to know you and what type of student you are, right? So one of the most important aspects of the grad application are these letters of recommendation. Other than your CV and your transcripts, this is where the admissions committee get their intel on what you're like as a student and if you're fit for their program. So it's important to build this rapport with your professors. And you can do this by just attending office hours. I think that's office hours are underrated because this allows you to show the professors that you're willing to ask for help whenever you struggle or that you understand these difficult concepts. Another thing you can do is just ask relevant questions to show them that you're engaged with your learning, right? And not only that, but they're also a good resource for advice on grad school because they know what it's like and they attended grad school. So last year, I also bothered a lot of my professors during the application process, just asking them questions on advice on what programs to apply to, what kind of financial assistance exists for grad school, tips on surviving grad school. So they're a great resource for you. And I'm sure that they'll always be willing to give you advice and answer any questions that you have. So now that you did all your preparation, right, during your undergrad, it's now time to apply to grad school. So how to apply to grad school. So here are just some steps that I took in the application process that definitely helped me. First, you want to do your research on the program if you haven't already. Create a personalized criteria to narrow down your options on what programs to apply to. Figure out your financial plan, because of course that's going to be a really big factor in your application process. And lastly, apply. So the first step is, of course, to do thorough research on the different types of graduate programs to find what program is best fit for you. So what are their admission requirements? Do they require the graduate record exam? Do they require subject tests? Do they have a certain GPA requirement? And do you meet that requirement? Are there any prerequisite courses that you need to take before applying to the program? Another thing to look at is their curriculum. So what kind of classes you will be taking during the grad program? Are those classes relevant to your interests or your educational or career goals? And also, what other experiences can you gain from that program? Do they have some research opportunities, some career opportunities? So these are some things that you want to look into. You also want to look for what student life is like. Is it going to be a small cohort where you're able to engage with your professors more deeply? Who are the professors and what are their experiences? Do they have any research experience and what are they in? And also just what life is like in the area. Are there things for you to do? And then lastly, you want to know if there are any funding options for your degree. So, or what are the funding options for your degree? So do they offer any research or teaching assistantships? Are there any scholarships or fellowships specific to that program or school that are available? Because this is where you're definitely going to find the bulk of the funding for your graduate degree. And then the next thing you do, I think was helpful for me, was creating a criteria to narrow down your options. So when I was applying to grad school, I was struggling with narrowing my options down. I had like a list of 15 or more, and I had a hard time figuring out where to apply. So Dr. Kino helped me during the application process last year. She told me to create a personalized criteria and apply to the schools that meet your mark or meet your criteria. So this is how mine went. I prioritized location and I looked at, is the school in an area close to nature where you can do other activities like hike, swim, and meditate, because those are things that I want to do outside of the classroom. Are there things to explore in the area? Is there family and friends in the area? So that was that was the thing that I prioritized most, and I set that at 5 points. And then below is, are there any internship or research opportunities? And I set that at 4 points. And then curriculum was 3, faculty size and background was 4, and then lastly, cohort size. So it's important, or I think it'll be helpful in narrowing down your options to create some sort of criteria like this, so that you don't apply to any and every school and you spend all that money. So probably one of the most important things you need to do is create a financial plan, right, before applying. Grad school and the application process is definitely not cheap. So it's important that you create a plan, as you don't want these financial burdens to hinder you from attending grad school. So some of the finances to take note of is the GRE. The GRE is $205. The applications go for $60 to $100, and they definitely add up. So you should definitely make a plan on how much these applications are and what programs you want to prioritize first. And then most importantly, how are you going to pay for grad school? What are the program costs and additional fees, right? One thing I want to emphasize about the application process and the application what you need to pay for the application is to look for fee waivers. In some research conferences, schools will offer fee waivers So you can look through there, but also some schools or some programs allow fee waiver applications, or they have fee waiver applications where based on your financial situation, they'll approve or deny whether or not they'll waive your application fee. So always look out for that, because this is a great way to just save a lot of money that you don't need to spend. Or you can just beg and ask them. That's what I did last year. The programs that had a 100 or higher price for their application, I just basically asked them, or I introduced myself and told them that I'm interested in applying to their program. And these programs definitely want people to apply to their program, and it may be beneficial for them, for you in particular, to apply because you're from Guam or whatever. So I think you should just ask them. It doesn't hurt to ask. And yeah. And then lastly, apply. So this is around the time that if you're a junior, you should start applying. So start on your applications early, so you can gather all the materials needed for the application, because some applications require a lot, like essays or personal statements. Yeah, most applications are open during August or September, and they are due during December and January. So it would be advantageous for you to work on them, especially if you're going to be busy with school or work around this time. And then this is also the time that you want to figure out who will be writing your letters of recommendation, because you want them, you want to be courteous to them and give them ample time to write a detailed letter. So just ask them early, around in the beginning of the semester. And here are just some helpful resources that I think you can benefit from. So the first one is a link that explains all the different types of graduate funding options. And then also just look at the different program websites and what type of funding that they have specific to their program. And then the second one is just forums and discussions. So in this site, students post their results, and they also post their stats, and if they got in or they didn't. They also have discussions on student life, opinions from current students in the program, and just tips and advice for graduate school. And yeah, that's the end of my presentation.
Okay, thank you, Dwight. We'll open the floor now for questions.
I have a question.
Yes.
Dwight always hears from me, but this is for your letter of recommenders. How do I say it? So you apply to multiple programs.
Yeah.
For all of those programs, did you ask the same recommenders to write you a letter of recommendation, or did you have like a variety?
For the most part, I asked the same people, but I wanted to distribute it so that one recommender doesn't have to write 10 different letters, right? So that's how one of my professors actually wrote all of my letters of recommendation for one school, or for other programs. But I just ask different people so that they're not overwhelmed with writing X amount of letters, right?
How many programs did you apply to?
In total, I applied to like 6 or 7, something like that. Yeah, 6 or 7.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, okay. Thank you.
Sorry, you don't need to answer this if you don't want to, but out of those 6 or 7, how many accepted you?
I got rejected by 1, which I didn't mind because I expected it was too ambitious. I applied to Harvard, but I didn't expect to get in. But yeah, the rest I got accepted to.
Okay, so you guys hear that? He has 6 out of 7 acceptance rate using these tips.
Are there any other questions? Grades you need to get? Anything about the application process?
When did you start your application process?
So I actually started it a little bit late. I didn't even know that I had to take the graduate record exam until up till last year, summer of last year. That's when I figured out that some schools require that. So I was a little bit late in my process. But I started the beginning of, or during the summer of last year, my junior year. But I think you should start earlier because I think some people or people recommend that you take the GRE in your sophomore year or your junior year, sorry. But I was already a senior, yeah.
So, Dwight, you started your
Yes.
program, right?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, so like,
Earlier this month.
so like once you get into like grad school, like obviously you can't like speak from like the experience because this isn't the experience like you expected your first semester to be
Exactly.
at
Yeah.
home, still on Guam. But
Mhm.
like, what would you recommend? So like, is the shift like in terms of workload from undergraduate to graduate different? And then like, what would you recommend like when you're applying for classes and stuff, like to a new person?
You're asking what the transition's like from the workload?
Yes.
With the workload? Well, it's manageable. I'm talking from the experience of a data science master's program, but if you're in like a pure math program, I'm sure that'll be definitely harder. But for the program that I'm in, I think it was an easy transition only because I just came from undergrad and I'm taking a probability theory class. And in this class, we're using a lot of real analysis and calculus. So I just took a real analysis class last semester. So it was an easy transition, but it's definitely not easy because some of the expectations for grad school isn't the same as undergrad. Yeah, the workload is definitely a change. I can say that.
Okay, thank you, Dwight.
Hello.
Hey, Johnny.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I just like to ask, since you weren't a CS major, what's the minimum, I guess you could say, like the CS classes that you had to take in order to apply to the program?
Oh, okay. So for data science programs, they only require that you have some experience with CS or specifically coding. So they required that you have, or for one of the programs like Northeastern University in Boston, Massachusetts, they required that you wrote a program by yourself X amount of lines long. But for University of Washington, they required that you have 2 programming classes. So it's different for other programs, but they do require that you have some programming experience.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. Does anyone have any other questions for me?
Also, Dwight, I know like AI is pretty also big in a UW. It's pretty much like top 5. Do you have any experience with dealing with AI or just being around that around?
I personally don't have a lot of experience with AI, but the curriculum for UW, the data science curriculum, there's some classes related to AI and machine learning, but I haven't gotten into that yet. So yeah, I don't really have a lot of experience with artificial intelligence.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Hey, Dwight.
Hey, Jonathan Bondoc, how are you?
I'm doing fine. Just a curious question.
Yes.
I notice taking classes right now is very different, but do you talk a lot with your data science cohort online?
No, or well, some like my data visualization class, they require like they put us in breakout rooms to do certain activities. And also in our classes, we interact through discussion posts, but I haven't had the opportunity to like get to know my cohort yet, because if it was in person, a lot of the curriculum is very group based and group project based. So I'm not getting a lot of that right now. Yeah,
Oh, I see. So
in this online
and
format. Yeah.
follow up, how's the breakout rooms?
Oh, anxiety inducing, awkward. Yeah, it takes like a minute for everyone to start talking.
Okay, thanks, Dwight.
Of course.
I know your program was supposed to be in person, right? Is that
Mhm.
like what they hope for like your next year? Because I know it's only a 2-year program.
Yeah. So in the full-time format, because they have two options, full-time and part-time. Full-time you would finish in 1.5 years, and then part-time you would do 2.5 years. But right now, with all this going on, they said that the plan for next quarter is still going to be online. And I'm sure that the entire academic year will be online for the first year at least. Yeah.
So you just plan to stay here taking the courses?
No, my plan is to move maybe by the end of the second quarter, only because um, they encourage you to do internships over the summer in Seattle or in the contiguous United States. So that my plan is to move to Seattle within the next year so that I can do a summer internship and then finish my program there.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Mhm.
What kind of summer internships are you planning on taking when you move there?
What kind? I'm not sure anyone that'll accept me. But our program definitely encourages us to apply to programs or internships in the area. There's a lot of internships for data science at Microsoft, at Amazon, um, at Convoy, and all these different startups in Seattle. So there's a lot of opportunity for new data scientists to get internships there. So that's why I hope to secure an internship over the next year.
I see. Thanks, Dwight.
Mhm.
Oh, hi, Dwight.
Hey, Abigail.
So, how many courses are you taking right now?
Right now I'm taking 3 courses. So this is the full-time student format. So this is one of the rare semesters where we take 3 classes, but as a full-time student, most of the quarters you take 2 classes, and then a part-time student would take 1 class. And then in the semesters where full-time students take 3 classes, they take 2 classes. But it's 10 credits total for every quarter. Yeah, so that's considered a full-time grad student at UW.
Okay, and then this is kind of piggybacking off of like John's question, but like you mentioned that like you have like these breakout rooms. So is that hard for you to attend, considering like the time difference and stuff?
Actually, this program is unique in that they cater towards full-time working students. So a lot of their classes are at nighttime, which in Seattle it's 6 p.m., but in Guam or on Guam it's 10 a.m. So it's not bad at all. Yeah. But I think for other programs that have it at the typical time of 8 a.m. or 10 a.m. At their local time, it would be hard to take online classes on Guam, I think.
Okay, thank you, Dwight.
Mhm.
Guys, feel free to ask questions. This is your time.
Yeah. Are there any freshmen, sophomores?
Sorry, I have a
Native-
question. So
Yes.
in addition to applying to grad school, did you also apply to any scholarships?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. So a lot of the programs, or at least from my experience, the funding is internal, so it's specific to that program or that school. So you should do your research on if there is any opportunity or any scholarships or fellowships for that grad program. Because if there isn't a lot, then I would stay away from applying to there first. But uh, I didn't apply to any scholarships in particular, but a couple programs gave me like generous offers. So they gave me some scholarship, and then they specifically UW gave me a scholarship, or the data science admissions team gave me a scholarship, and then they also nominated me for a fellowship, and then I ended up taking that. So that was good for me, I guess. But other schools, like there wasn't a good financial support, so I didn't end up going to those places like Northeastern University. They didn't give me any funding, so I didn't continue my process with them.
Okay, I see. Wow, Dwight, you inspire me.
Oh, I'm getting private questions, but I think it's a good question. So, have you considered taking a gap year? And what made you decide to apply straight to grad school? And this is from Anonymous, but it says their name, so it's not anonymous. Um, did I consider taking a gap year? I think gap years are a good idea. But for me, I didn't. The reason why I didn't want to take one is because um, I didn't have a lot of or a ton of knowledge or experience in data science. And this is something that I was passionate about since my sophomore year. And I was eager to take classes related to data science. And the curriculum at UOG, I did math, right? So although it's not completely unrelated to data science, a lot of the content wasn't what I wanted to learn in my undergrad. So that's why I wanted to go straight into a master's program and learn about data science. Yeah. But I do think there's some benefits to taking a gap year. And then what made you decide to apply straight to grad school? Oh yeah, just lack of experience in data science. I have another question. They asked, what schools did you apply to? Um, yeah, okay. So I applied to Harvard, rejected. And then I also applied to Rochester University in New York. I applied to Northeastern University in Massachusetts, UMass Amherst, um, the school that Dr. Kina went to that I can't remember the name of, and then UW. Yeah, I think I'm missing one, but yeah, those are most of it. Oh, and what made me decide UW? Well, UW was my first choice because I wanted to go to Seattle. Not only because I thought it was the best data science program in the country, but also because that's a hotspot for startups. And there's just a lot of opportunity for data scientists. And then also they gave me the best financial package. So that's why I wanted to attend. And I also lived in Seattle before, so I kind of know what it's like living there. So it wouldn't be a huge transition, I guess. Hope that answers your question. Another private question. Do you think graduating and coming from Guam was an advantage or disadvantage when applying to grad school? I think it was definitely an advantage. Yeah, I really push the I'm from Guam, I'm a minority. I mean, use it to your advantage, right? Yeah, I think it was helpful because a lot of these programs probably don't get people applying to their program from Guam. I think like for UW, I don't think anyone applied to their program in recent years. So you're a rarity, and I think that when applying to grad school, you should ask them for those fee waivers, because I think a lot of or a big reason why they might have given me fee waivers is because I told them I'm from Guam and that I'm really interested in applying to their program, but I don't want to pay for their application fee. But yeah, I think coming from Guam definitely worked to my advantage.
Hi, Dwight. Or can I
Hey.
just add on to your gap year thing?
Mhm.
So like I talked to just for everyone in or like in general, because when I talked to Lois, she's also one of our alumni. She
Mhm.
said her gap years helped her if you need experience. So if you
Yeah.
didn't get enough experience during your undergrad years, it's best if you want to gain experience, you know, through your gap years, so you can build up your resume. That would be a good thing.
Mhm. I agree. Are there any other questions?
Dwight,
Yeah.
so if you were if you did when you do move to Seattle, are you gonna live on campus or
Oh yeah.
near
That's a
campus?
good thing. That's a good question. So another thing is to look into is if they have graduate housing. Some schools don't have housing for graduate students, and most of the housing for their school probably goes to the undergrads. But UW has graduate housing. So if I move there, I plan to move into one of the graduate dorms. Yeah. I think
Was
one of the
sorry, go
advantages
ahead.
of graduate housing is it's like a package deal where uh, you get the utilities, the water and power, and it's not separate like typical apartments where you're only paying for the apartment itself, and then those other utilities are an additional cost. Yeah, so it's like a fixed price, and then also through graduate housing, um, they're more like nicer, I guess, about your payment, and like if you're late or whatever. I think they're more willing to uh, accept late payment rather than individual landlords. Yeah, or that's what I researched. I'm not sure. Might be specific to Seattle.
Okay, thank you, Dwight.
Mhm.
So if there's any other questions, any other private questions, feel free to ask.
Yeah, you can send it privately, and I'll just say it if you don't want to ask.
Hi,
Hey
sorry.
Dwight,
Oh, go ahead, Johnny.
go for it. No, I'm good. We can wait.
So sorry, I have a lot of questions, but for data
Go
science,
for
I
it.
know that there's a lot of different concentrations, especially with what you want to analyze. Because you know how I know I saw in one of your criteria you didn't want business analytics.
Oh yeah.
You
Yeah.
did. Okay. So I wanted to ask, like, which one were you leaning towards? Like, what kind of analytics?
Yeah. So for data science, the way that a lot of people think about it is it's an intersection between math and statistics, computer science, and then business intelligence. And then there's a lot of like gray area, right? Because there's like data visualization, data communication, and predictive analysis and all these stuff. But one of my criterias was I didn't want to take any business related classes because that wasn't what I was interested in. I wanted to take like math heavy classes or classes that had like machine learning or predictive modeling. So the programs that I didn't apply to had a lot of had some sort of like business class that I didn't want to take. So yeah, just do your research on if they have, or what you're interested in first, and if they have those classes and classes you want to avoid, I guess. Yeah, but for the most part, a lot of the data science curriculum is similar, where you're taking a lot of probability and statistics, predictive modeling, data visualization, database management, things like that.
Dwight, you were talking about startups and stuff, and that's something I'm like interested in, like tech entrepreneurship. Is UW pretty big on that?
Startups, I'm not entirely sure. Startups, I just know that Seattle is a great place for startups, and there's a lot of startups there, and they need a lot of like tech people. But I'm not entirely sure if UW has a big hand in that or whatnot.
Okay. And are you able to do you have like contact information, like an email or anything? Reach out.
So maybe I can put it in the chat. So I can give you my email. So if you have any other questions, you can email me. If you don't, oh, I sent it privately to someone here. All right, there.
Thank you, Dwight.
Oh, Dwight, I have a question.
Yes.
This is more for like people who are deciding whether or not they want to take grad school. I don't know if you answered this question already, but why did you decide that you wanted to go to grad school?
Why? So a big reason why I wanted to go to grad school was because the education that I was getting at UOG didn't align necessarily with my career goals of being a data scientist. I had a mathematics degree, so a lot of it was pure math, and that's not really what I wanted to do. And I also don't want to be a math teacher, and I'm not saying that's what a math degree is for, but yeah, I didn't from the curriculum at UOG, I didn't get a lot of experience with like database management and tools and techniques used in data science that are relevant now. So that's why I wanted to do a graduate program in data science.
Oh, okay.
And, sorry. Oh,
go ahead.
Another reason is because there isn't a lot of classes and or programs at UOG. There's no graduate or undergraduate program alike that it deals with a lot of like data science curriculum. And I think that's something that they're pushing, or that I heard through the grapevine that they're pushing for in the future. And I want to be a part of that change at UOG if they do plan to create like a data science undergraduate program or graduate program.
Okay. And with your data science career or journey, do you think you're gonna go into doctorates?
My plan, or at this point in time, no. I want to finish my master's and then get some career experience, and then maybe come back to Guam and help with the curriculum and data science on Guam.
Okay, thank you, Dwight.
Yeah, I thought I had a private question, but it was just a private comment. Are there any other questions? anything about the application process or anything that I didn't cover that you want to ask me?
If there's no more questions, I think now is a good time to wrap up the presentation. If anything, Dwight gave his email in the chat. So if you have any questions that you would like to discuss with him like privately, just feel free to email him. Oh, sorry, Dwight, I'm like advertising you.
No, yeah. I'm open to any questions.
Okay,
Just
so-
another comment. Sorry. So for
Yes.
everyone here, if you had friends that didn't come or something, we recorded the session and we'll do the same thing we did with Game Zone. So it'll be on our YouTube and I'll send out the link as soon as it's up. Thank
Okay,
you, Dwight.
so
All right.
thank you, Dwight. This
course.
wraps up our second episode. See you next month.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care, Dwight.
You too.